at 6, where we just get into that daily vein and talk about what's going on in the world today, the hot topics. And I know that your timeline is being eaten up like mine with the politics and the indictments and the RICO charges with Trump. But there's a story that's out today about a brother that they're not telling us who this brother is. Now, there was a death in a golf course in Santana. A death by an off-duty sheriff's deputy. And they did not disclose who the individual is or was. And I got an opinion, and I think that it might be a brother. And I'm sure it could be confirmed with a few phone calls, but it seems that the way things are going, as a people, we're going to have to figure some stuff out. Now, it's crazy how they turn things around on a daily basis. And one of the main reasons why the at 6 concept came to mind is because they like to turn the page so fast. And when they turn the page so fast, we get distracted by any and everything. Everything is happening. Things don't stop, they just continue. So our minds can't focus on what's really going on. But at 6, we're going to continue to talk about stories, backstories, to really understand what's going on. Because another heartbroken day, and pouring out a little liquor for the democracy, because the fires in Maui has become politicized. When I say the fires in Maui has become politicized, I'm saying that I watched the mayor, a white mayor named Mayor Green, Caucasian mayor of Maui. And it's kind of strange that the natives, kind of in the catch-22, guilty by association, because I watched the interview when he was on CNN, and he stated that he didn't know the cause, but some of the alarming systems didn't work. He said, some of our systems are dated, and we're going to look into it and find out exactly what happened. Then he said, but the President of the United States is going to grace us with his presence, talking about Joe Biden, is going to grace us with his presence and come and look at the damage and assess it, and what a great thing that the president is doing for us. As soon as he said that, he mentioned and started talking about climate change on the spot. And when I say start talking about climate change on the spot, it was so clear that they're using, human nature, they're using human error to cover up something that clearly they're not talking about. And they're not talking about Hurricane Dora. And when I say they're not talking about Hurricane Dora was approximately 800 miles away from Maui, but somehow generated so much wind to actually cause what happened. And Hurricane Dora is being classified as one of the largest hurricanes in American history to not make landfall. And when I say it did not make landfall, I just mentioned that the hurricane, the closest the hurricane actually got based on the tracking of the data deep in the Pacific Ocean, approximately 800 miles away. So if the cell towers exploded, if power lines went down and sparked fires, we have to be somewhere in the middle and conversate about what, in terms of what the ignition was. Now, you want to blame the electric company, you want to blame the power company, and say, they should have turned off the power. But no one knew or understood or been in a situation or scenario where these things would happen in terms of, down power lines and things like that. So the global warming thing, the wind, if you didn't have wind to blow at such a magnitude, then there has to be, some things put into play that can actually, create some type of change when it comes to, how we do things. If you want to blame it on the land, and if I look at the Bible, I can't, get out of my mind that it started with floods and ended with fires. So with that being said, we're going to continue to talk about it, but the point that actually brought up the hurricane, because yesterday at 6, if you missed it, go back and watch it. It's on Better Black America TV. Just go ahead and click live, and all the live broadcasts or podcasts will actually pop up. But I mentioned Dora, Hurricane Dora, and then I made a mistake and said that Maui, meant gift. So I kind of messed up a little bit. So I'm correcting it today. So I'm redacting some of the language from yesterday because I was totally, cross-referencing. But for the most part, Dora means gift. Hurricane Dora. And last year we had one of the largest hurricanes in the history of the United States, at least in the last 100 years were documented, was Hurricane Ian, which was supposed to, hit landfall in Tampa Bay, but somehow it ended up going to Fort Myers in Lee County. And Fort Myers is General Myers Confederacy. Lee County, General Lee Confederate. So we got to start paying attention. And we start to understand, that 3/5 compromise. And when I say understand it, meaning have some conversations about it, because the Montgomery Brawl actually changed the game a little bit. So as people, we're going to get an opportunity to, make amends of what's going on, because if we just pay attention to what's going on, then we can actually see and understand that these signs and wonders and these anomalies are basically just signs of the time. And when I say signs of the times, I am referencing being actively looking, searching, seeing, and understanding this world and this universe from a divine, spiritual mentality concept. And when I say that, I'm saying from a religious perspective, because all religions lead to the same thing. And at the root of most, if not all religions, is it's a good thing. But now we're living in a time where we can actually study the mindset of the one that they actually tried their best to make sure that we couldn't even talk about him. And if we do talk about him, they say we anti-Semitic, and that's Jesus Christ. So Allah, arm, leg, arm, head. Think about that. Arm, leg, arm, head. Think about that. The mind controls the body. Up until now, we did not have a mindset because we were not really understanding. And now that we got to look at what's going on, and if you look at the number 4, all of the things that we see going on with the former presidents, the RICO case and all that stuff going on, all of it is predicated on the 4 years. Because every 4 years they pick culture. But this time around, we're going to have to make an educated decision and choose freedom, because freedom is going to lead to our liberation. It's going to lead to our prosperity, because not only do we survive in this nation, it's time for us to thrive in this nation, because all of these things work together. They're politicizing a natural disaster. They're trying to blame it on humanity. Now, the Mayor Green has hooked up with democracy, the Democratic Party, and now they're making it a Green Deal type situation. And when I say a Green Deal type situation, I mean a global warming, try to push electric cars and all of these things, but they don't look at it and see the extension of it, because if you pay attention, there's been incidences that we haven't seen, and in those incidences, there have been, ships actually caught ablaze because of the electric cars. The batteries actually caught on fire, and we talking about, upwards of 300 vehicles caught fire, and it never hit my timeline. So they're doing their best to actually hide things and tuck things and, keep things, from not being seen. And when you look at what's going on with Trump and Fani Willis, the district attorney who's brought up the charges, the RICO charges on Donald Trump, along with 18 others of his comrades. And on today, and you heard it here on the 6th, on today, she gave a date where Donald Trump got to turn himself in. And CNN has been capitalizing on it because they went on record and went to the courtroom or the particular court and started their telecast and said, this is the place where Donald Trump is going to be entering the courtroom. Fani Willis has charged Donald Trump, and due to her efforts and her RICO case that she won with Young Thug, it's going to be something to remember. And I'm starting to see, political pundits, say Donald Trump wants to be president so he can actually pardon himself. But everybody in their right mind know that Donald Trump wanted to be president as soon as, he did not win. And with his particular case, he is basically innocent until proven guilty. And a lot of times things, the cover up. So the cover up that they're basically charging and going after Donald Trump so hard is to cover up the Biden crime family. And when I say Biden crime family, you've got a presidential administration, found cocaine in the White House, your son got cases, bastard children. So this would have never happened, under, black leadership, because, when they put blacks in charge, they pick the best of the best. And when I say the best of the best, they pick the best of the best. So we got to understand, what are they covering up? What's really going on? Because Donald Trump is the most charged president in American history, but you got to think about it. All press is good press, 48 laws of power. So just imagine the not only the politicking, but the campaigning and the fundraising that he's going to be doing. Because if he has to raise funds, for a case or any situation, I think I'll be asking, for money for my case, and not only my presidential campaign, but I'll be asking for some bread for my case. And that's real. So we got to understand what's really going on. So we can't turn the page. We got to understand what's the real is. And a Better Black America TV, Better Black America is predicated on the empowerment, the advancement, the separation of the black race from the establishments, because we can no longer continue to be between a rock and a hard place. We can no longer be the middleman between, the two horses. We can no longer be the middleman or in between, these two rivaling families, the Hatfield and McCoys, the Republicans and Democrats. But it's crazy how, when you look at things, when it comes to leadership and growth, they happen in threes. And that three shows you that it can't be two against one. It has to be one against one and then a mediator. So they left a spot for the black man to be. When I say the black man, we are the moral compass of the world, because we have a core set of values that is predicated on Christ, because we look up and our main objective is to add to the equation and not take away from it. Help and not hurt. Lead and be the best follower, because the best leaders are the best followers. So when I say the moral compass, I'm meaning that we have to take the baton, and I'm speaking to the black man, a better Black America. You heard it here first. You heard it here at 6. We have to take up the mantle and understand that there is a position for us to not only take, but it's our rightful position. There's a position for us to basically assume the position. And when I say assume the position, I mean, it's a spot wide open for us. Because when you look at strategic governments and when you study the politics, when you really understand what's really going on, then you see the play. If you look at the 3 branches of government, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the Supreme Court. So if you look at the 3 branches of government, there's an executive branch that's being not, let me say this, there's the executive branch, there's nobody at the wheel, okay? There's a spot left wide open, and it's the executive branch because President Joe Biden is not running this country. President Joe Biden is holding a position of power to make sure democracy survives, because it's democracy versus the republic. It's going back to the Civil War, democracy versus the republic. And the republic freed the slaves. Democracy fought to preserve slavery. And on August 5th, 2023, they understood that their 3/5 rule and 3/5 and keep the Southern folk happy, that they lost a little bit, they lost a lot of their power, because of that was a significant moment in time that actually happened. And it's really showing us how we can actually separate ourselves, because at the end of the day, we have to understand that we're in this thing together. And when you have Republicans and Democrats, when you have Sadducees and Pharisees, when you have scribes and people that that will be deemed hypocritical, the evangelicals and all of these religious organizations that participated and capitalized, they get an opportunity to get it right. And when I say an opportunity to get it right, only way that they will get it right if we assume our position. And that's the executive branch of government, because there's nobody at the wheel. There's nobody speaking for the country. There's nobody leading the country. And just like J. Edgar Hoover said, there is, Messiah type figure in the Black community is detrimental to the United States of America. But one thing he did not realize, while he was, messing up and destroying Black communities all over this country, he opened the door for a white Messiah named Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump's polling after his cases is actually widening, spreading more. And he said it himself, he could kill somebody on Broadway and still become president and nobody will believe it, because that's the power that he has. So while we're looking at an abandonment of the executive branch of government, our Congress, they're doing their job. Congress out there working hard. Okay, you look at our sisters, Fonnie Willis, she's working hard. They're doing their jobs. And because Joe Biden said it himself, the need to know basis. He likes to whisper. He said that, a need to know basis. So with that need to know, a lot of the things he don't know, he has documented more times away from the Oval Office than any sitting president at his personal home in Delaware. He hanging out at the beach, but he will be in Maui. He will be in Maui, to make this thing political and global warming and all of this stuff, and not talk about the ignition was caused by a natural disaster. And that was Hurricane Dora, which means gift. And then last year, Fort Myers in Lee County, had the largest hurricane, documented in 100 years, called Hurricane Ian, and Ian means gift from God. And then if you look at the connection with the Confederates, Lee County. Come on, General Lee. And then if you look at the name of Maui, which means trickster, demagogue, and that's what Maui means. You know, I'm not saying that they're going to actually change their name, but if you look, check it out, trickster or demagogue. And you heard it here at 6. Now, the debate is over about the so-called Trump supporters or Trump voters that got hands put on them in Montgomery, because the January 6th crowd, you know, that was a different crowd. Okay, these guys are being locked up as we speak. A lot of people has been charged, and the ones that are not being charged were actually our law enforcement officers. You had a few, you know, clearly FBI and CIA could justify and rationalize why they were actually there because of their high intense surveillance. But those were a different type of people, because those Southerners in Montgomery, you know, those rednecks, those Confederates, you know, they have a history of slavery, and this is why they don't leave the South, and this is why there's so much division on people in the South, black people in the South, because they share the same cities and communities with the whites. See, in most places in urban cities, places are, you know, pretty much segregated. And if you do live in an area, you know, where you're black and you live in amongst the whites, you know how to, you know, work with the code and be a part of it and be a good neighbor, and vice versa. Because if you catch some whites in the hood, you know, they're on their best behavior. So when you look at the Montgomery situation, you have country whites, Hicks, you know, that pretty much, you know, they speak broken English, and, you know, they live in the swamps, and they're not really, you know, they're not conservatives, but some strange reason they continue to vote in an alliance with whites, white supremacy. So a lot of times when I have these debates and conversations among scholars, they like to talk about class. And when they talk about class, they're literally talking about a class agenda that they're trying to implement. But there's no way we could talk about class if we don't close the chapters on racism. Because as long as there's a racial situation, class cannot be talked about. Because as long as, you know, blacks and whites are fighting amongst each other, and blacks are torn between two political parties, blacks and more importantly, black men in the black community is suffering from a condition, an ecosystem that was actually created. Because we can actually see the vibe, and we can actually see what's really going on, because they can actually control what we do. There's been police killings. You got to pay attention. There's been, you know, just yesterday or this morning, there was a sheriff's deputy off duty shot and killed at the golf course in Santana by Santana police. And that was today. And they didn't even tell us who the individual is, because they don't want us to trip out, because I truly believe that it's a black man, and the police officers, the Santana police officers, are actually white. And they are actually keeping the identity away from us, because they don't want, you know, something to happen when they don't want it to happen. Because if they wanted it to happen, you know, they can actually, you know, turn up the volume. They could put it on the news right now behind me and have us out there protesting, you know, wanting justice and rioting and doing all kind of stuff. So now that we live long enough to understand how they get down, so we got to talk about and understand their ecosystem. And their ecosystem is what they're creating, because mass incarceration is connected to slavery. Slavery never ended, because there's a criminalization clause in the Constitution, because the criminalization clause on the Constitution, it goes neither slavery nor voluntary servitude. That was a period. And then after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, they wanted to, you know, keep the South happy, so they put a comma, unless criminalized, and that gave Fort Myers and General Lee the power to just go and round up the blacks that were caught south of the Winn-Dixie line. And we're still suffering from that condition today. And I'm saying it as a group, because I'm not suffering from that condition as an individual, but but I'm looking at it from a group perspective because it's not about me, it's about what's going on. And when I look up the data and I see that they're paying $114,000 annually to lock up a man in prison in the state of California, then crime has to pay. When you have a homicide, you can have a homicide, you know, they won't come pick the body up. That homicide, that body gonna lay there all night because everybody gotta eat off that dead body. And when I say everybody gotta eat off that dead body, let me explain. You get a 911 call, there's a murder, there's a homicide, okay? The dispatcher that's working 911, she eating, she getting paid. She pays the police officers who's on duty, then he runs over there, and the first thing he does is set a perimeter. And when he sets that perimeter, he was about to get off duty, so now he finna get some overtime because he's gonna be there all night. So now when he sit there to set the perimeter, the other police officers come, they case the joint, the detectives get called, they protect the crime scene, and then the detectives come, and then they do their work. And when the detectives come, they take their time, they eating, more than likely they're working overtime, and then it don't stop right there. It continues on. Now, the coroner's office has to be called. So now there's a process that's going on with coroner's office that's going to actually pick up the body. So now the jail has gotten a call because they caught the suspect. Now the suspect is being processed in jail. So see, all these moving parts is a part of a system that's operating out of control on its own axle. And it's all predicated off the original sin, which is slavery. And this is why A Better Black America, at 6, we're breaking news because we are seeking a constitutional amendment. Because as I turn on the news, on cable outlets, on Fire Stick, on all, streaming, I've never seen a situation where blacks just really talked about creating some real change when it comes to blacks. And when I say creating some real change when it comes to blacks, we got to understand that there is a constitution, meaning we can actually go and lobby and change some laws. Because when you say stuff like, man, we got to stop mass incarceration, people just getting arrested. Then there's somebody say, man, they ain't gonna stop doing that. And then we should be like, okay, because that negativity just spoke to millions of cells, to put that negative vibe out. So just imagine when we say, we're gonna do something about it. And the question is, what we gonna do? And the answer is, we're gonna seek a constitutional amendment. The Constitution has been amended 27 times. So we're seeking the 28th Amendment, and it's to amend and redact and take the criminalization clause off the Constitution because we knew that the president that emancipated the black man and Congress that voted for the emancipation did not have a continuance on it because the person that was supposed to finish the job was assassinated. So that assassin's bullet is real. And, we studied, J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI because yesterday's FBI, none of this stuff will happen. And I mean that. Yesterday's FBI, none of these things will be happening. Wouldn't be no Trump charges, wouldn't be no Hunter investigation, wouldn't be anything. You know why? Because J. Edgar Hoover is in charge. And J. Edgar Hoover will blow your head off. Look at the Kennedys. What FBI agent in the world, the top cops, would allow a president to just roll around in a convertible? And a lot of people say it's conspiracy and things like that, but he got assassinated. And when you have assassinations and moving parts and people coming and shooting the suspects and all kind of stuff, you really have to understand what's going on. Dr. King, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. Bobby Kennedy, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. All the racist, the bombings of the little girls in Alabama, the riots, the bus boycott, all of these things was under his FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. But my point in bringing him up, and I said that these things wouldn't happen today, wouldn't be no Donald Trump, because the assassin's bullet. J. Edgar Hoover would have popped Donald Trump. You know, and to the FBI right now, by no means am I saying anything like that, because a lot of us did not hear. There was a person in Utah that was put out some propaganda on his Facebook and social media pages and said that, you know, he was going to shoot and kill Joe Biden, but next thing you know, the FBI showed up at his house and killed him. So I'm just basically doing a little satire, FBI. So I'm just talking. So now that I got that out the way, the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI would have popped Donald Trump. There's no way they would have settled for this. They would have popped him. And then, you know, a lot of Democrats, my Democratic friends is laughing, you know, when I said that before, speaking to an audience, but we know without shout out, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI would have popped Joe Biden's retarded self too. Now, it would have been so obvious it was them, because he would have got one shot to the dome, in the bed at the White House with some cocaine on the table, with no suspects. So we know without shout out, when there's no suspects, we know who it is. So just understand that they will do anything to preserve their democracy. And I'm gonna tell you, J. Edgar Hoover was a Democrat, and he was gay. So at that time, you know, he was, you know, conservative. It wasn't about, you know, the movement of the LGBTQ, because it was a time in life where it didn't matter what you did or who you was with. Just don't be trying to just, you know, push that agenda on somebody else. You know, because as a man, you know, I could care less about what y'all do. You know, I was concerned about what I was doing, and I'm thankful to God that he brought me out of all of that. But enough about me. J. Edgar Hoover's FBI would not allow none of this to be happening. And number two, you think J. Edgar Hoover's FBI would allow Fani Willis to charge Donald Trump? Ain't no way. So we have come a long way, people. We have come a long way, and we got to ride this wave, because seeking a constitutional amendment is something that will go down in American history. And we are making history right now. Because if you look at the district attorney who's charging Donald Trump in Georgia, you know, Ray Charles wouldn't even play in Georgia, you know, because of the racism that was going on there. And he was blind and he saw it. So we have to ride this wave. And then you look at the number 4, which means, you know, every 4 years we vote for a president, because every 4 years we're battling culture or freedom. But this time around, the black man is choosing freedom, because we are not going to associate ourselves with either the two political parties. And I'm putting these things into the atmosphere because if y'all pay attention and go out there and do your due diligence and start looking up the no party options, the no labels, the Green Party, the Peace and Freedom, D's Nuts campaign. They got D's Nuts 2024, Jesus Christ 2024, Cornel West, and then, you know, I'll figure out where I'll start doing the research, and we're going to start talking to some of those other third-party options, because there's a 40% of the electorate that will not be voting Democratic. So Joe Biden and Donald Trump can actually have a fair one this time. And the trick bag of it is we got to go into the ballot, into the box, and write it in, because if we don't write it in, you know, I think that they cheated and was able to upload your vote with Joe Biden electronically if you did not vote, because they sent out mail-in ballots to everybody that was actually registered as a Democrat, and that's real. Ballot harvesting, all of that. So it's going to be a tough case to prove, because a lot of us believe that that election was stolen. People believe that the Al Gore, his presidency was stolen from George W. Bush, but he conceded because that's democracy. But when you talk about wealthy, influential, elitist, privileged whites like Donald John Trump, then they'll throw the weight of the federal government at you. And this is how they have left the door wide open for the black man to take his moral position in this country and pretty much lead from the executive branch position. And when I say executive branch position, I mean that Joe Biden is absent. He's not running the country. He's not speaking to the country. He's not communicating. You look at the news and all you see is Donald Trump and Joe Biden stumbling and bumbling. So democracy is dead, it's dying, and the black man will not urinate on it if it was burning. And I'm just keeping that 1,000 with you, because there's no way God's people is going to perish due to the lack of knowledge. And it's not going to happen. Yeah, it's not going to happen, because, we believe, in the conservative values of Dr. Martin Luther King. It shouldn't be by the color of our skin. It should be by the content of our character. And if you look at the content of the character of the sitting president, that doesn't fly with us. And then the content and the character of the other guy, a lot of you all don't even call him by his name. You call him 45, so it must be really bad. And for this man to have 19 felonies charged, 91 felonies charged with him, that's crazy. And then 18 of his comrades and a sister is prosecuting. And she basically is saying that he gonna have to come in and turn himself in. And like I said, CNN News is turning into the Donald Trump television show, because when he got indicted and had to go to New Jersey, the news was sitting back talking about Donald Trump like he was God. And just like I mentioned, J. Edgar Hoover was so keen in on, destroying any Messiah type figure in the black community, and he opened the door wide open for Donald Trump, then it's clear that's a Messiah type figure. Where in the world were a television station that don't even like him? CNN do not like Donald Trump. But I watched CNN when Trump had to turn himself in and plead not guilty in the case in New Jersey. They showed his house. And I'm sitting back saying, wow, the news was down just like it is. And I'm looking out and say, wow, that's a beautiful golf course. And then it says, we're sitting right now hovering over Donald Trump's house, such and such a country club. And he's here, and he's going to be headed out by motorcade to the airport. And he's going to ride his private plane down to New Jersey so he can basically, answer for his indictments. And I said, wow, Donald Trump is a rock star. And you would think that would be on Fox News or Truth TV or Trump's television. No, CNN. And I'm sitting back like, wow, how did that happen? So all of this, all of these things that's going on is making us look like Banana Republic. And the black man is pretty much, we on deck. And when I say on deck, meaning we really just gotta figure this thing out, choose freedom over culture, and have the conversations of change. Because reparations is real, thanks to Sheila Jackson Lee. Look it up, H.R. 40 was introduced into the California State Legislature. It passed the State Assembly, it passed, and it introduced, passed, and is sitting on Gavin Newsom's desk. And where are we gonna get the money from? Just print it up, give us the paper. Because if you could send or ask Congress to approve $26 billion more to send to Ukraine, we can actually go for that billion. So myself, a team of lawyers, in the spirit of Johnny Cochran, are going to basically bring the case, for Black America. And we're going to create, the situation, because we want a divorce from her, and her daddy, Uncle Sam, is going to have to kick in. And it comes with a constitutional amendment. Now, if you look at the 14th Amendment, they talked about abortion, and the 14th Amendment is what they use for the federal government to kick out abortion on the federal level and push it to the state level. So we have to use that same mindset, because the federal clause, if we redact the Constitution in terms of removing the criminalization clause off the 13th Amendment, neither slavery nor voluntary servitude less criminalized, take that criminalization clause off of it from the federal level, then that means it's kicked back to the states, and the states are going to have to. So if we're talking about reparations, we want a complete separation, because we know without shadow of doubt, if we get some reparations and don't change anything, the same brothers going to make the same mistakes. The same brothers going to, flood these prisons and all kind of stuff, because they love to play these games and, make it a win-win amongst them. But we're smarter than that. Generation X is next. Generation X, equals freedom, equals liberation. We were born in a time where we actually, living in this phenomenon. You can't just tell us anything, because if you just talk to the masses and start just bumping your gums and talking, if you pay attention to be a couple people on their phones, the next thing you know, hey, that ain't right. So why not use this system? And with AI coming, we don't know what's going to happen. I got a prediction that AI is going to fall flat on its face, just like those little hoverboards. Because remember the hoverboards, we thought we moving into the next generation. We riding around now. What happened? It was just a fad. Because the AI is using the information on those that don't have gifts and talents. Because I know, a lot of you out there like myself, you will, reboot your phone or don't go the route that they want you to go, because you have to, go against the grain, because they really want to know the thought process of atypical individuals. But the B and C typical, or the mindset individuals, they're the ones with the algorithms that's actually being set up, and they've been bullied, hurt people, they are suicidal. And so clearly the machines will be designed to take down the strong man like myself and you. And the strong man has nothing to do with size, it's a mindset. It's a mindset, because we have to elevate and get to another level. And I'm gonna, help you get to that level, because you have a race of people that was actually stolen from their land. It's biblical. The children of Abraham will be stolen from their land, dwell in a foreign land, will be casted as slaves and duly oppressed for exactly 400 years. I, God, will punish the oppressors, and my people, shall come out with great wealth. And that's who we are right now. So for us to get there, we got to understand that we can't let people, make us who they want us to be. Because there's 3 races on the planet: the Negroids, Caucasian, Caucasoids, and the Mongolians, and we've all had to barbecue those Asians. And the point that I'm bringing that up is because to identify ourselves will be very vital, to the mission moving forward. Very vital to the mission moving forward. And I pray a lot, and I read a lot, I study, and this thing is coming into fruition, just like, being manifested before our eyes. And it's real. It's real. It's spiritual. So my birth certificate say Negro, and I know some people, before that it was colored. And then there was a time where we had afros as black people, and they called us Afro-American. So they was able to classify us in an ethnicity pool by hairstyle. And then we became black, and we was black and we was proud. But black is dominant, black is strong. And the acronym for black for us is Black, Latin, Asian, Caucasian, Kinsman. But if you're gonna rock with us, the black man is driving this, we driving. The B is first. And this is why we want to redact the B to the LBGTQ, because B stands for bisexual. Over there is no such a thing. If a man like a man, I don't care if he got a wife and 35 kids, he's a homosexual, period. And this is why they don't say heterosexual over there, because of the H. But back to the level, or to the nature at hand. As a people, we see how they documented us. We see how they just made us what they wanted us to be. Thugs and all of this. So here's our opportunity in today's time to actually identify ourselves. Now, we got to understand, our nationality is American. We have 400 years of equity in this nation. We're not African American. We're not. Okay, you can't be 2 continents. Okay, we are American. That's our nationality. Our ethnicity is African American, because that's what they're calling us right now. Because I remember when, Jesse Jackson, took, I am a revolutionary, and turned it to I am somebody. We was black and we was proud, but they used our own to flip the script And this African-American ethnicity thing has been put into the same packaging with anything left. And when I say anything left, that's the feminist movement, the trans, the LGBTQ, anything that's, when it originally was not supposed to be like that. Originally, it was supposed to be liberation. But 1964, there go that 4 again, they chose culture over freedom. Dr. King got a pen and he was shot 4 years later. So we get a chance right now to identify ourselves. And you look at the Jewish community, Jewish, okay? Now, a Jew, people that's from Jerusalem, direct descendants, but Jewish, it's an ish. Then you have Irish people. Okay, there was a TV show called Blackish. There was like a mulatto family. Then if there are some beautiful blondes, Swedish women. I've never had a Swedish massage, but it's a story out on social media where a youngster went and got a massage and the Asian masseuse, touched the genitalia, and he called the police and got her arrested because he didn't know what a happy ending was. She just went to wanking him, and he went and called the police, and you could look it up, and he said, hey, yeah, you going to jail, you touched my genitalia. So you got Germans, but in terms of ethnicity, Taiwanese and all these things, right? So I'm saying, how can we as blacks re-identify ourselves? Something that the masses would actually agree with and understand. And one thing that we do have in common, we believe in God. I could care less at this moment, what you call your God or what you believe in, but at the end of the day, it leads to my God, which is Jesus Christ, which is the Godhead, which is, the spirit that I speak in. So now somebody gets to speak, for the masses and to wake up the masses, because we got to have these conversations, because when I hear Farrakhan on the internet, he talks about Jesus like he's a Baptist minister. When I hear, my Islamic brothers from, Iranians and the Muslims overseas, and they call them the Sand Negroes, they be talking, they'll say Allah. And one dude told me, Bushan, do not worry. Allah just means God in Arabic. And I said, okay, yeah, it do. Arm, leg, arm, head. So I'm saying it all leads to the same thing. Because Allah, arm, leg, arm, head, now the mind is on. So what do we call ourselves? What do we do? How do we move forward? What ish are we? And then I thought about it. We believe in God. So let's be Godish. The Godish community, which will be the moral compass, not only of the universe, but of these United States, because we're going to speak, teach, and preach from the executive branch position, because the posts have been abandoned by Joseph Robinette Biden. And with that being said, man, it's that at 6 is over. That hour went by pretty quick. So go ahead and go and subscribe to Better Black America TV. And I do the Creative Commons. I share I allow my information to be shared. So do what you got to do. But we're going to be here at 6. We're going to figure this thing out. So think about it, man. You got Irish, you got the Jewish. Let's be the Goddess Society. And the Goddess Society will, we basically, filling in the gap. And that gap is between the rock and the hard place, just like on Jesus' last days. And with that being said, y'all have a great day. This is your man, Bushan Glover. Peace out.